Well, a very good morning to you. It's Monday, June 13th, 2022. Welcome to your time, Andy Johnson. Thanks for staying with us. This is how we're going to begin. This is how we conduct the next hour and a half here on this program as we kick things off around here at WESN and WESN-CC. This is AM Prime on a Monday morning. It's raining outside where we are. How it's where you are. We'll talk about that when we get to the weather and those things. But let's tell you what's coming down this morning. We're talking with Sean Fuentes in the second hour of the program about the continued fight of the march of the Super Warriors to where they want to go with football. Trinidad and Tobago is one of Trinidad and Tobago's favorite sports. We get there's a report in The Guardian about a march against St. Vincent. We're talking here about a march against St. Kitts. We'll get to that in the second hour of the program. Of course, we have some of the staples for you. The look around the region. We'll be going into Guyana for our first step this morning. Also, we're talking with Opposition Senator Damian Lyda about something having to do with he's proposing how to treat with the property tax. We'll get to that also down in the program. But right now, of course, the staples, COVID-19, where we are on this Monday morning, 2 years and more into this pandemic. But right now, let me just read a short letter that was carried in the Express early last week. The headline was Questions for Immigration and National Security. On Monday evening, I flew into Piarco on a Caribbean Airlines flight from Orlando, Florida. 1. At passport control, there were only 2 immigration officers serving all of the Trinidad and Tobago and CARICOM citizens. 2. Why can't immigration roster staff to ensure sufficient support when flights arrive? It's not rocket science. And there were at least 3 supervisors wandering around instead of serving customers. 2, what happened to the automated passport reader machines that were installed with such fanfare in 2018? Where did those go? Taxpayer money going down the drain? Question mark. Who is being held accountable for that complete waste of money? I look forward to your response. The letter was signed by Lara Quentrell Thomas, chairman of an organization called Regency Recruitment and Resources Limited. Ms. Quentrell Thomas is our guest as we kick things off this morning. Lara, good to see you.
Good morning, Andy, and thank you so much. I'm not sure that people want to talk about immigration first thing on a Monday morning, but let's do it.
Yes. What do you think might be better?
Well, yeah, I know. I think the fact that there's a long weekend ahead is probably more on people's minds, but I'm glad to have the opportunity to discuss it with you this morning.
Right, and you say that's just the beginning of it, of your issues with immigration. Yeah.
I could spend 3 hours with you talking about Piarco alone, from the toilets to the way they treat you if you try and take a trolley out from the luggage area, to the lack of information. I mean, as an international airport, which is the first place that visitors to our country, far less citizens and returning citizens, the first experience they have of Trinidad and Tobago, I really am quite amazed at how little is offered in the way of amenities, information and service. And I have written repeatedly to the Airports Authority just about the ladies' bathrooms alone. You know, you arrive, you get through immigration, you go to the ladies' washroom in the duty-free area. Inevitably, very little toilet paper, half the stalls are not cleaned, nowhere to hang your handbag, there's no soap. And this is your first toilet experience on entering our country. And, you know, to me, as somebody who's in the customer service business, it is these small experiences that build up to your overall impression of a country. And so from landing to getting off the plane to getting to immigration, that very first sort of line of interaction with public officials. As a CARICOM citizen now, that I'm fortunate enough to call myself one, that flight, you know when the planes are coming in, you've got the schedule. How hard is it to roster staff and toilet cleaning and all the other services that are required with the flights arrivals? I really don't understand why that cannot be done. I'm sure, you've got collective agreements and all of those things that can be worked out, but to arrive with a flight of 300 people and there's 2 immigration officers, and where the machines have gone, nobody knows. I really feel that in the 21st century, in the year 2022, especially after COVID, and we want people to come and visit, we want business travelers and tourists and all of these things, we should be doing better.
Yeah, I'm coming down quite apart from this on untuned or not tuned into this issue that we're talking about, something just came to my mind. I was thinking about this meeting that they had in Los Angeles a couple of days ago. This issue about the Caribbean and Latin America, the Summit of the Americas, and so I was rehearsing some of what the Prime Minister was reported to have said. And I remember that and he talked about the fact that we had been the smallest country in the region to hold such a summit, the Summit of the Americas. I think it was in 2009. And that was built on the back of an aspiration that we had to have the headquarters for the FTAA in Trinidad and Tobago. Well, that fell apart. But one of the things that they were marketing this thing on was this brand new airport that we had built at the time, although there was a lot of criticism about what went on, and some people call it a sophisticated cowshed and the rest of it. But they were touting it as the gateway to the Americas, this brand new building we built there.
And I remember some years ago, I was on the AmCham board, and we had a conference here, and it was sponsored by, it was DHL or one of those global logistics firms. And so they sent a number of executives down to speak at the conference, and collectively those 6 or 7 executives spent something like 12 hours at immigration. And because it took them so long to get through that they almost said to a man, "We're never coming back." So now I'm not suggesting that they get VIP service or anything like that, but at the very least, I mean, even Miami Airport, which is, if you've flown through there, isn't, 8 million people a day kind of a thing. You do move, the lines move and the systems work. It's a little slow, but you get there. But our immigration, it just seems to be it's the first stop of a journey of frustration through PRCO. And one of the things that really always upsets me is when you've picked up your luggage and you go through customs and, again, you've just got 2 officers, But if you're somebody, I've seen this many times, a mother with children and trolleys and luggage and babies crying, and you come out through those doors and those guys jump on you and say, "You can't take the trolley. Where are you going with your trolley? The trolley cannot leave." Why are you giving people a trolley if they cannot take it out to the curb to meet their family, to unload their luggage? Or as they do in many civilized countries, you could take it all the way to your car. They will, it just, it really does. I don't understand why we haven't fixed it. I mean, I've written enough letters of complaint myself. I'm sure other people have. And it's just common sense customer service. It's not even rocket science.
Yeah, so to deal with the deployment of staff. So a flight comes in with a couple hundred people, and you see that there are 2 people at these desks, but 3 supervisors walking around, you say, and not doing anything, but walk around.
Yeah, there was actually a lady a supervisor who I spoke to, because I am not, as you know, terribly diplomatic about these things. And I said to her, why are there only 2 staff when there's 300 of us waiting at the CARICOM side? I mean, the visiting foreigners national side was equally busy, but they had about 9 officers. And she just sort of walked away. She wouldn't even really respond. And then there were a couple of other supervisors wandering up and down with clipboards, looking very official. But, I run a business, and if I see my staff overwhelmed with customers in our front office or in a recruitment fair or whatever, I step in, I go and help. I get behind a desk and I do what is necessary to help customers have a more efficient service. And our supervisors, they don't, that's not their job. They're above that. I don't know. But to me, to have 2 immigration officers and 3 supervisors who are not doing any work, and halfway through another officer came, but still. And then where are the machines?
Yeah, but I wanted to come to that. As you say, that we went to that, but I don't know if to call it what to call it, but that feature of coming in and leaving the country with big fanfare, great fanfare, as you said, it's just been packed up.
Well, yeah, I mean, actually, a few people have sent me links to various articles. 2019, of course, it was sort of launched in 2018. And then there's been an investigation ongoing into the actual contract that was awarded by the Airports Authority to the technology company that installed them. From what I've read, it was due to cost something like 300 million TT dollars over 6 or 7 years. And there was an obligation that the Airports Authority agreed to in terms of the volume of passengers that the cabinet felt, couldn't be upheld. But my question is, why did the Minister of National Security at the time, Edmund Dillon, I believe it was, go and launch this and there was lots of PR and the media was there. If, the proper procurement procedure was not done, if the cabinet, it would seem, was sort of unaware of this agreement that had been made to commit something like 300 million TT dollars, taxpayers' money, to this agreement. And so an inquiry was launched. I believe Justice Nelson was in charge of that. That was in 2019, and a report was due to come back within 2 or 3 months. That was 2019. We're now in 2022. The terminals are not back, so I presume that they are in a cupboard somewhere. So what happened? I've actually filed a Freedom of Information Act inquiry request to see if we can get some updates. But that was 2019, and now we're 2022. What's happened to those machines? Where are they? Is the contract being terminated? Have they been sent back? I don't know.
Yeah, and these things should be in the public record, and people's questions should be respected. A lot of times that doesn't happen. You never get a response. So if you get a response, it's never a lot of time meeting the question you asked.
Yeah. Well, according to what I've read about a Freedom of Information request, the public officer, and I wait to see, I've emailed 3 people that's names were on the website. They have to reply within 30 days. I don't think they have to give you the information, but they have to confirm a receipt. And, it should be, as you say, in the public domain. This is taxpayers' money that was spent, committed. What's happened to the contract? It was a 7-year contract the Airports Authority signed. So are we in breach of the contract? Have fines had to be paid? I just simply don't know. And I think that's something that taxpayers should be, there's many things, of course, that we should be asking questions about. But this just struck me recently because, as I say, I entered through PRCO. But even when they had the machines, I don't know if you ever experienced them, you still had to go and line up afterwards.
Yeah.
So I don't know how, I'm not sure how much help they were, but that's not really the point. The point is the money was spent, committed, and an inquiry was conducted. Where are we with that? What's the status?
Yeah, and for most of us, people just even forgot that there was this big push to do that. And, all the fanfare that went into it. We come through there and don't even bother to ask those kinds of questions.
But I think we should. I think more and more, especially in a time where the government is repeatedly saying how little financing they have. And, we know the state of the economy. We're all fully aware of what's going on. So where there has been or there are questions about government spending, I think it's incumbent on us as the people who pay that money to ask questions and to insist on answers. And I know that people say, we like it so, and, you're never going to get anywhere. But I actually believe that we should try and ask the questions and insist on answers and hold them accountable, because otherwise it's just more of the same time and time again. I mean, it happens so often. Of course, as you know, I sat on the OPR board for the first couple of years of its existence. And a big part of the procurement legislation is to try and make sure these sorts of things don't happen. But until that's fully proclaimed, we have to hold them to account. We have to ask questions. That's $300 million that you had committed to have this modern technology in place. Where is it? What's happened to the contract? Has our money been returned? And, if not, what's being done about it? I don't think that's an unreasonable request of our government.
Yeah, so you expect to talk about the responses you may or may not have been getting.
I don't know if I expect to get one. I certainly hope that the public servants that I've written to will respond. I've written to the minister, I've written to the head of immigration, and so let's see. I will certainly let you know if I do hear something. I mean, I am a bit of a letter writer, by nature from since I was a student, and it's very hit and miss. I have to say that some governments are better than others, and I mean literally the entire government. Some governments do respond, others you never hear anything from. And I think it's an important mechanism for the government, whoever is in power, to communicate with citizens. Even if you write to your MP, and I have written to my MP many times on different issues, never, ever get a response, ever. in 25 years of living here. I've had the same MP, never responded. So, you know, how hard is it to get a secretary or an assistant to write a short response? You serve me, you serve the public.
And this is distinct from a minister. You're talking about your member of parliament in the
who happens to be a minister, my particular MP. But yeah, just generally, I wonder how many citizens write to their MPs for answers on issues affecting them in their communities and get responses. I'd be very interested to know. You know, certainly you can go and visit them, and of course they have office hours and so on. But emailing or writing a letter, you should get a response. You pay their salary.
And you say you've never gotten a response from...
Not from mine, no, never. In how many years I've been living in this part of Port of Spain and writing letters, he's never once replied.
Irrespective of who is it? You said it's the same MP for 25 years?
Yeah, it's been the same MP for a long time, and he never replies.
What do you make of, I mean, how do you respond to those things? What do you do? How doesn't it get you angry?
It does, yes. It's very frustrating. I mean, I continue to persist and resist, you know. Nevertheless, she persisted because I do believe in holding our public officers to account. I do believe that our taxes are not always spent the way they should be. And I mean, just in terms of roads and police services and fire services, all those different things that we should expect as citizens for the taxes that we pay. And so I continue to ask the questions, and some people tell me that, you know, it's futile, it's Trinidad, just don't even bother. But if we don't bother, if we don't continue to sort of bang on their door, then they will never change, and they will never... Maybe it won't affect this generation of politicians, but maybe the next one will be more accountable. Maybe the next ones will be more transparent. And I feel like you have to keep, it's about a battle, not a war, right? This is a long-term change that we need in terms of transparency, accountability, value for money, all of those things for taxpayers. And if something as simple as, airport immigration kiosks can just disappear off the face of the earth and we don't know where that's gone, what's happening. Now, I may be wrong. It may be in the public domain. Maybe I'm completely unaware. I did Google, I did look, but maybe somebody can provide an update. But so many times we have commissions of inquiry into all sorts of different things, and nothing changes. And I think people are fed up, people are frustrated, but you have to turn that into action. And demand, hold your MP, hold your regional corporation, whoever it is, hold them accountable, and write letter after letter after letter, and until maybe they get so fed up of you, they respond. And I'll just give you a short story. Some years ago, where I live, we fall under the Diego Martin Regional Corporation, and we had some bamboo that was coming across the river towards my property. And I called the Diego Martin Regional Corporation. They have a special unit that comes, sort of a disaster unit, to cut down bamboo and all of these things. They didn't come, they didn't answer the phone, they didn't reply to emails, all the usual things. So I hired a guy to come and cut down the bamboo, cost me $600. I then sent the receipt along with a letter to the regional corporation asking for reimbursement, because you've already got my taxes, so I want the money back. And about a year later, I got called into a hearing at the regional corporation, and I went in, and my check for $600 was ready. And I had to go through all sorts of hoops and loops to get to it. And it was downstairs in a cupboard under the door, you know, with this lady, and you had to give a blood sample and all the rest of it. But I got my $600 back.
What was the blood sample for? Why did you have to do
Well, no, I'm just teasing. But you know what I mean about trying to get things, you know, you have to have 15 forms of ID and a letter from your parents and a job letter and a utility bill and all those silly things that we have to go through to prove that we are who we say we are. I mean, you just look at my ID and you can see that it's me. But as I say, they gave me back my $600, and my friends were astonished, that I even bothered, because it was only $600. But it wasn't the money, it was the principle. You have been paid to deliver this service to me. You failed to deliver it. So now I had to go and pay out of my own pocket. I want my money back. And it was quite interesting, because the hearing room, there's the corporation, and then there was another group of people, and there was obviously a lot of antagonism between the two groups. And there were citizens like myself just sat there asking to get things done, stop fighting and get things done for the people of, well, Diego Martin in this instance. And and I got my $600. So sometimes, a little bit of persistence pays off. It's slow. It is slow, but sometimes you can get your money back.
What does that tell you? What are some of the conclusions you make about us as a people? Who a lot of us just take these things because in some cases people resign to the fact that we won't get anywhere. They won't take us on. So what's the point? And then some of us I've seen as people do this. I've seen as troublemakers, and they're people who identify you as such, and he again, she again, and just put your stuff aside. I mean, how do you keep going?
Well, yeah, I'm sure that I have been labeled a troublemaker, and I'm sure that maybe there have been opportunities that have passed me by because I am vocal on these issues. But I believe, and I was raised, and I know you're very familiar with my father.
Yeah.
I was raised to ask questions, and at the very least, if we can't get service that we pay for, understand why. And I'm not saying that as citizens we don't do anything. For example, you shouldn't be littering. Or you litter everywhere and then complain when the rivers get flooded and your house floods because you threw a fridge in the river. I don't believe that it's a symbiotic relationship, right? We have to play our part as citizens to keep our homes clean and our communities clean, and can't only be the council or only be the government. But at the same time, this whole idea that it's never going to work, don't even bother, just forget it. I have seen, not many times, but a few times, where I've complained or asked questions. And I want to point out, I don't only complain. Sometimes I do ask questions.
Yeah.
And I've actually got responses. And I mean, the Airports Authority is a good example. As I said to you, I have frequently complained about the ladies' toilets. And they respond to me. And they're sort of like, oh, yet again, Miss Quentrell-Thomas, we apologize. Now, apology is good, but why don't you fix it? That's really what I want. I want to arrive at Piarco, go to the ladies' washroom and just think, wow, fantastic. It's clean, it smells great, there's enough toilet paper, there's enough hand soap. What a lovely way to, have my first toilet experience in Trinidad and Tobago. I mean, it sounds simple, but it's a big deal. And you go to Miami Airport, 8 million people using the bathroom every hour, and it's always spotless. Why can't we do that? So I feel that if you just give up and you just say it's never going to change, well, then it's never going to change. The only way it can change is if we constantly, as I said, insist that they be more transparent, fight for what we believe in. And I know we're not revolutionary by nature. We're more sort of armchair revolutionaries, on social media. Oh, this is terrible. This is terrible. And then say, okay, well, let's go. Let's do a petition, or let's go and, well, it's a long weekend, so I probably, I might be at the beach. So we're not terribly activist, but there are some of us, and I think more, especially young people, who are willing to stand up and be heard. And if the consequence is that, I can, never become president of Trinidad and Tobago, well, so be it. This is my legacy, perhaps, is better toilets at Piarco.
Yeah. So, but what are some of the things they say as to why it is in the condition that it is so often? But the people
They
say
don't, yeah, they don't,
lack of staff,
they don't
lack
often,
of equipment, material.
It's always, there's very rarely an explanation. What you typically get is a thanks for your letter and that they'll look into it. So I very rarely get either an explanation as to why or a commitment that it's going to be fixed. But you'll say, yes, we'll look into it. And of course, these things are outsourced. So there's a service provider who, the janitorial service and so on. And so, I mean, I want to give the Airports Authority credit. At least they respond, and over time I have been able to, I wouldn't say build relationships, but I've sort of made connections in some of the other ministries as well. So people at the very least will respond to my email, and they may not always take action, but at least I hope somebody's listening. And I mean, sometimes, what is the expression? The squeakiest wheel gets the oil.
Yes.
So who knows? I do believe that we have to hold them to account. And, we complain about the politics here so much, and yet we seem, by and large, unwilling to do anything.
About it.
Yeah. And so maybe just in a small way, I'm just dealing with small issues like immigration staffing, or, you know, toilet cleanliness at the airport, or getting rid of those guys who won't let you through with your trolley. Those little things all together, if we want to be a destination for conferences and events and tourism, those little things all add up to a positive tourist or visitor experience. And, you know, I've written to the Minister of Tourism. I mean, look what just happened with the cruise ship recruitment. You know, thousands of citizens standing in the rain. I mean, you know, I just don't know why we keep doing the same thing over and over and again and expecting different results.
Do you think that was that sort of tangible evidence of the situation in Trinidad and Tobago regarding jobs? I mean, thousands of people lined up at these three venues. Some people went to Port of Spain, they went to San Fernando, and then they went to Tobago because it's such a case of desperation. What does it tell you?
Yeah, I don't know. From what I've heard, you know, a significant number of those people were not necessarily unemployed as much as perhaps underemployed or in jobs who took the day off because obviously
wanting better opportunities. They see that as, you know, working on a cruise ship. You know, you think about it in probably luxurious terms, or you know, whatever. And some people want to get into that.
And of course, you know, you're earning US dollars. And I mean, I know a lot of people who've worked on cruise ships, both from here and the UK. And I mean, the work is hard. It is hard work. But, you know, you're at sea for 3-4 months. You can actually save a bit of money to send back for your family, or, you know, come back and build a home. So I do think it's a great opportunity for people once they understand that it's not, as you say, all glamour and traveling the high seas. It's not the Love Boat, as we, you know, we're not mixing pina coladas, you know, whilst sailing around Hawaii. Yeah. It is hard work. I mean, real graft. But I do think it's an exciting opportunity, and I'm glad that they were able to come here and offer it to Trinis, and I think that's wonderful, and Tobagonians. But I think the fact that they didn't anticipate the numbers of people. Now, of course, it was an online system, so you were able to pre-upload your vaccination card, your resume, all of these things. So I'm not quite sure what happened, because if you hadn't uploaded your documents, presumably you didn't have an interview appointment. So why were you there? I think the way they advertised it was a bit misleading. It was sort of, you know, come to Napa and get a job on the cruise line, which is not exactly what the process was, because people who had uploaded and done what was required ahead of time had interviews, as far as I understand. Yeah. And many were hired. So I don't know if the way it was communicated led to this idea that I can just show up. And, you know, of course, if you want a job in the customer service tourism industry, you know, fighting and cussing police officers outside Napa is not a good start, right? So this is not a great look for you if you want to work in the customer service industry. So I don't know what happened, but I do feel like we should know by now, after what happened with the COVID vaccination, that, you know, opportunities like this, people are going to want to show up and bring their families and their friends, and, you know, and so to not have provided adequate interviewers or shelter or whatever was required, and to not partner with the private sector. Again, you know, we keep saying we have event management experts in this country, as we showed with the COVID vaccinations. You know, we can do this together. But once again,
it was a bad start. And the thing is, just with 200 jobs on offer, thousands of people showed up.
And probably 6,000 people applied. Yeah.
All right, Laura, we're going to have to leave it there. But thank you very much for your continued public spiritedness.
My pleasure. Thank you, Andy. And I will let you know if I hear back on the Freedom of Information Act request.
Certainly. We keep in touch. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Have a safe day. Bye-bye.
You too. Laura Quentrell-Thomas, head of this organization called Regency Recruitment and Resources Limited. We're going to take a break. When we come back, we share with you the numbers for COVID-19 and matters incidental there too as we move forward. Stay with us.
Did you know that 1 in 4 children has an undetected eye problem? Their vision can change dramatically every year, from the blackboard to digital screens. 80% of learning starts with what our eyes perceive. Keep your child's future in focus at Ferreira Optical. Get complete eyewear for kids starting at only $695. Come into Ferreira Optical today. Conditions apply.
What's the best way to grab the attention of viewers? please exercise more patience. You have to be kidding me.
Doing what we do best. I'll say at the very least it's a conspiracy of laziness against the people.
Join me, Keaton Shaw.
And me, Sean Michael Small, for Talking Point.
Weekdays from 8 a.m. to 9:30 a.m.
We go in depth on the trending issues and engage the most controversial newsmakers
as we get them to account to the people for their actions.
You can't go to the government with nothing. You can't go to cabinet with an empty hand, with a wish.
I'm glad that we're having this a sober, mature discussion.
In the present situation, I expect a continuation of the chaos.
Join us for the discussion, Mondays to Fridays,
only on WESN,
the content capital.
The issue, the continued rise in the price of flour and its impact on the cost of living in Trinidad and Tobago. How should we go about it? I want to ask you, what has been revealed to you about the state of vulnerability in the country because of this exercise and because of what we're going through? Is the government losing the war on the vaccine front?
The discussion should revolve around the common good for the greatest number of people in Trinidad and Tobago.
How do we inculcate a sense of respect and regard for people who may not be of your own political ilk or persuasion?
The communities are now being used by political opportunists. So
when the tables are turned, it's the same way. Okay, this has been 10 Questions. I'm Andy Johnson, and we'll see you next time.
Join me, Sule A. Joseph, as I delve into the day-to-day psychological issues plaguing our society. We will discuss behaviors that encompass the biological influences, social pressures, and environmental factors that affect how you think, act, and feel. Sight, Thursdays at 11 a.m., only on WESN, Content Capital.
Welcome back to the program. Our guest now is Opposition Senator Damian Lydon. He's talking with us about his views on property tax. He's suggesting that we impose the tax on agricultural, commercial, and industrial operations beyond residences alone. Mr. Lydon, good morning.
Good morning to you, Mr. Johnson, and good morning to all your listeners on WESN Content Capital. I hope you guys are feeling as bright and bushy-eyed as I am.
Well, certainly you have to be doing this business around this time. All right, so let's get into it. About you have a proposal like this because what you're thinking that your position is that we should have expanded sort of the issues and the areas under which people are taxed.
First of all, let me make it very, very clear, Mr. Johnson. The United National Congress is totally against property tax, foisting property tax against this nation, on this nation currently, at this point in time. So I want to get that clear because, you see, when we debate these bills in Parliament, it's easy for the media to pick up certain things and clip that, and then it creates a narrative. But I must make it very clear that the United National Congress is against property tax in any shape or form at this current time, at this time in our economy, when we see that a major economic decline, when we see that people are struggling and there's mass unemployment in Trinidad and Tobago, to come to the nation and foist on the shoulders of the lower income and middle income, especially property tax at this point in time is what we believe to be heartless of a government to do at this point in time. So let's.
All right, but the fact is that the fact is that this been hanging fire. This is a matter that's been hanging fire for decades now, right?
Yes.
Going back a decade ago and more. You remember the slogan "Axe the Tax." So that was back in 2009. So we're in 2022. Right. So why is it never a propitious time to bring it?
Well, I mean, you would recall, Mr. Johnson, back between 2010 and 2015, under then a People Partnership government, there was the discussion of the reintroduction of property tax at that time. But you have to keep in mind that this is when a People's Partnership ran a country with a vibrant economy, an economy that was growing. Times have changed. Things are different now. And with over 120,000 persons coming off the NIB list, which sort of indicates the level of unemployment in the formal sector, and God knows how much in the informal sector. The environment has changed once again. It is our view that the current administration has run this economy into the ground, and as a result of that, with the level of unemployment, with over 6,000 SMEs shutting their doors during the pandemic, and with the economy already in decline before the pandemic, it is our view at this point in time, property tax would be somewhat of a heartless decision to put upon the people of Trinidad and Tobago. So that is our firm decision, our position, in the UNC at this time, that we are not for property tax in any shape or form. So that's the first thing I want to clear up with you.
All right. Yes.
The second thing I want to say is that now I have to be a bit cautious how I speak now. As you would know, Mr. Johnson, this bill is still being debated in the Parliament. In fact, we return tomorrow to committee stages. So we are in the midst of the bill. So I have to be very cautious as to what I can speak about at this point. But I can speak towards what was carried in the media on June the 8th in the TNT Trinidad and Tobago Guardian, which is what you probably would have read, which is in the formal media now. And what I was basically saying is that the government is making a provision for the municipal corporations to collect residential property tax only.
Yes.
And so I asked the question, what happened to commercial property tax? What happened to industrial property tax? Now, I want to also say that even with agriculture property tax, I'm of the view, and I'm not speaking policy here for UNC, but I am of the view that at this point in time, most definitely the last bit of property tax we should be bringing now is that of agriculture. Because, when you look at over $5 billion food import bill, and the fact that the Ministry of Agriculture under this current administration has absolutely failed the farmers of this country and failed to give us that sort of self-sustainability for food production, where we're still relying on heavy imports. At this point in time, I wouldn't impose property tax on agriculture, because again, it will simply just pass the cost on, or that property tax will be passed on to the consumer at the end of the day, who has to buy food. So, but more specifically speaking, I speak towards commercial and industrial property tax. And that was the question I had for the government that the media picked up as to why are you, why are you again foisting property tax onto the residential, which will affect all persons, whether it is low income, middle income, and upper income, but yet the commercial property tax and industrial property tax, these big businesses, big mega companies, they get a free pass. And to me, I couldn't understand why they will be exempt from paying property tax at this time. And secondly, why the municipal corporations would not have a stake or have it mandatory that they would collect either all or a percentage, a fixed percentage of property tax as it pertains to commercial and industrial. You see, so
you're saying, in principle, you're taking the party line. You're obligated to do that there should be no tax imposed now. But insofar as it is inevitable that some taxes would be imposed on some sectors of the society, then you're saying how it should be done?
Yes, well, it's clear. The Minister of Finance came out and indicated to the nation that he's reached the threshold. He's reached that threshold now where they can start working towards implementing property tax. And this bill, this local government reform bill, in my humble opinion, is nothing more than the government's attempt not to provide local government autonomy, not to decentralize the control over local government, but it's again to centralize and micromanage and get control over local government by putting these overarching powers, giving these overarching powers to the Minister of Local Government, and especially in this bill to the Minister of Finance. But again, I won't go too far into that. But again...
So you're saying what appears to be sort of further empowering the local government bodies. You're saying there's a sting in the tail here. There's a trick. It's a mirage.
Well, again, there are a number of clauses which I can sort of cite to you, but again, I don't want to get too deep into it because we are in debate, right?
Yeah.
But there are a number of clauses in this bill that gives the Minister of Local Government, and more so, and this is very interesting, yeah? More so, the Minister of Finance gives the Minister of Finance really serious overarching powers over certain elements of local government. And what I find very troubling is that the Minister of Finance represents the executive, the political arm of the state. This is a politician who is going to be given the rights in certain clauses to have power. I mean, I could cite a few of them for you, for instance. But before we get into that, let's not get off track. Let's get back to property tax and what happened in this bill. Right? Now, I was looking through the bill and I looked under clause 3 in section 78 of the bill. So this was about midway through the bill under property tax. And it clearly stated in that section, and I will quote it for you, a municipal corporation shall be responsible for the collection of property taxes in relation to residential land within a municipality.
Yes.
And number 2, when a municipal corporation collects property taxes on residential land in its municipality, it shall retain such taxes in its corporation fund established under section 109. So that was what was clearly stated under property tax. So that immediately alerted me to, well, hold on, residential, why not commercial and industrial? And the big question here is why not? Because commercial and industrial does not stand alone by itself in most parts of our country, with the exception of we would say like the sort of economic zones or the e-tech parks and so forth that are sort of within its own domain.
Yeah.
Many of these commercial companies and industrial companies sit within neighborhoods. And I could give you a case in point. Let's look at El Socorro South, right? That's a very classic example. In that area, you have a mixture of agriculture, residential, industrial, and commercial.
Commercial enterprises. I mean, it's a big growth area in the last decade or so.
That's
they
right.
Moved out from Port of Spain and elsewhere and clustered there.
Exactly. And it's happening through the length and breadth of the country. I'm just citing one example for you. Now, these residents have to live in these areas. When you look at the industrial, what do you see? You see big trucks driving through the road, mashing up the road, mashing up the sidewalks. These are all local roads. Pollution in the drains, the canals, garbage being created by industrial waste, pollution. I mean, there are a number of factors that can cause some level of discomfort to the local burgesses in the areas, in that area. Now, what happens? When a burgess is affected by this and they contact their councillor in the area, they're expected to get some sort of redress or relief from the councillor from some of the ills that have been created, not only by the regular wear and tear from the residents, but I mean, there's major wear and tear coming from industry and commercial. And whereas I am not against big business or industry and so on, I mean, it creates jobs in the area. They pay their fair share of taxes to the economy. So there's a contribution a major contribution by manufacturing plants, industrial plants, and so on. But at the same point in time that they do contribute taxes, this bill is asking the residents, the burgesses of a neighborhood where these sort of companies exist, to bear the full brunt of the contribution towards local government and towards the monies needed to help fix the roads and the pavements and to deliver the goods and services under the remit of local government. And here's the thing. In the bill, the government, the minister, which is on Hansard, spoke about some close to $300 million that will be created or that will be garnered from these residential taxes. And I asked the question openly, how much What is the value of property tax that will be coming from the industrial sector and from commercial properties? Again, keeping agriculture out. But what is the value? What is the amount of property tax that will be coming from these industrial and commercial entities? Right. Deafening silence.
Right. So here's the question, and there are other areas. There's many other areas in the country which have opened up sort of industrially and commercially. If you talk about Trincity, that continues to be an expansion going on with commercial enterprises there. The question is, how does it relate to household and family holdings if the area is seen as becoming more industrialized and therefore the sort of property rates will go up? That will affect industrial rates as well, not so? If you're going to...
So sorry, you went blank for a second there. You just shut out blank for a second.
Yeah.
You said...
residential property values will go up if the area becomes a beehive of industrial and commercial activity. All right?
Absolutely. Yeah, absolutely. Well, yes, that I mean, one would say that. I mean, so yes, there's some level of benefit to a resident's value of land, but of course that land and property, but of course that only takes up their property tax and their contribution.
Well, that's what I mean. Yeah. That's what I'm saying.
Because how it works is that there will be professionals from the valuations department that will come and will value your property, and so you might have inherited a house from your grandmother or your father or something like that, and you happen to be in an area where property values are going up. But then you're going to be asked to pay a much higher property tax. But you see, understand something though, Mr. Johnson, is that who does this really affect? These areas that you speak about, most of these residences or burgesses that live around industry tend to be in the lower income or middle income bracket. You don't see factories going up in Goodwood Park, factories going up in Valsay, right? You don't see that happening, right? So it really affects the persons in a lower income or middle income bracket in these areas. And we are asking now, the government is asking these residents to foot the bill. And we, as you said earlier, it is inevitable, it's coming. We may be against it in the UNC, but it's coming because the government in true form hasn't been listening to the cries of the citizens of this country, and they move forward with their agendas. And therefore, when we ask the question, why not commercial at this point in time? And what is the value of the commercial and industrial that could be garnered from property tax and from these businesses? They have gone definitely silent in this fact, and that leads me to believe, me as a person, believe that is it that you care not about the low and middle income persons, and this government is clearly about big business, as we've seen in many other instances. They've been about big business. Are they protecting their friends and their financiers? I don't know. But it's very strange. If you're going to come and put this pain against residents, why are you not asking those mega companies like Atlantic LNG, companies that sit in the Point Lisas industrial sector, beverage companies, manufacturing plants, multi-million, if not billion-dollar companies who have the ability to contribute towards property tax at this point in time? Why are you not asking them to contribute? Especially when they themselves are playing a big part in the depletion of the resources in the area, and it is absolutely unfair that should happen. So I mean that's been the gist of it. And Mr. Johnson, I can tell you, I had to scour way down towards, this is the bill here that I hold in my hand, and the part on residence was at page, the bill was at page 49 of the bill. So I kept scouring through the bill, and I went all the way to the end of the bill. And on page 85, under clause 10, so we're almost to the end of the bill, before I could find commercial and industrial tucked away almost in the middle of a very large clause. right? And when I turned, I saw on clause 10, subsection 3, new subsection 3, it states, and I quote, notwithstanding subsection 1, the minister may, by order, declare which of the agricultural, industrial, or commercial taxes may be collected by the municipal corporations and what percentage of those taxes collected may be retained by the municipal corporation. Not shall, may. So that puts the power in the hands of the Minister of Finance. Total power into the hands of the political arm of the state, a politician. So first of all, they're not introducing commercial and industrial at the same time as residential. They have not even given us a tentative date if they may be bringing that after residential.
After all these years of waiting and
yes.
revamping and revising and so on.
Right, and exactly, and they've had all this amount of time, right? And now you're saying bringing it. You don't know if we bring in industrial or commercial. We don't know, right? But even when you bring the industrial or commercial, it does not go automatically into the hands or into the coffers of the municipal corporations, right? In fact, so it is completely to the discretion of the Minister of Finance what percentage, if any, would be given to the municipal corporation.
So
let me tell you,
how much of that reality you think is lost? That people assume that. I think there's the Minister of Finance himself who said that he presented a situation one day in the Parliament that this is a means by which the regional corporations will be further empowered. You're saying that that's the trick.
Yes, you see, I'm glad you said that, right? Because you said that the people may not be aware. And if you pull the average man or woman off the side of the road, firstly, they don't even know the way this whole property taxing is working, right? There's been very little education about it. But if you ask the average citizen, they would assume that everyone's going to be charged property tax, residential, commercial, industrial. I don't think the population, the majority of the population, until, of course, this interview today and last week in The Guardian on the 8th of June, the majority of citizens would not have been aware that it is only the residential properties are going to be taxed at this point in time.
Yeah.
And I think it's important the nation understands that it's not going to be commercial, industrial. Those persons, those entities, that have the capability to pay property tax, they're not being asked to pay property tax. It's madness. And then of course, as I said, you are now, if eventually it comes, you're putting the power in the hands of the Minister of Finance at his discretion to inform a corporation exactly how much they may be able to retain. And let me tell you why this is very dangerous, Mr. Johnson. This is dangerous because you have to understand, and I'm not casting any aspersions on this Minister of Finance or any other minister, although I have my personal feeling about this current government.
About this current minister.
About this current minister, this current government, I have my personal feelings. I have seen so far this government, a lot of political victimization coming around. But let me say to you that, let me tell you why this is dangerous. Okay, so let's say, for example, I'm just going to use an example here now for you. The San Fernando Regional Corporation, I think if I'm not mistaken, the United National Congress lost that corporation by about 2 seats, if I'm not mistaken, right? And it's very marginal, right? So this is a very marginal corporation. Here you have the Minister of Local Government who sits in San Fernando West. So he's the Member of Parliament for San Fernando West. You have a corporation that is very marginal. So here you have here you have a minority corporation where the PNM controls it currently. A Minister of Finance who has the ability to say, well, all right, I'll let you keep 50% of industrial and commercial to do the work of the corporation, bolstering the delivery from a PNM-led corporation. You have the ability again to direct resources how you want, especially seeing that San Fernando West is a marginal seat in the general elections. So again, you have a Minister of Finance who has the ability, any Minister of Finance, who has the ability to direct the funds of commercial and industrial, which can, again, we've asked the question, how much? We know 300 million to residential, but what is the amount to commercial industrial? Could in the hundreds of millions, maybe billions, right? And you have the Minister of Finance who has the ability to direct funds in such a way that could interfere politically with the performance of a minister who sits in a marginal seat or local government corporation.
Yeah, it could be used to affect the political balance.
It can, and at the same time, when you look at, for example, when you look at the Couva Tabaqui Talparo Regional Corporation, which is a stronghold of the United National Congress, you can have a Minister of Finance, any Minister of Finance deciding, well, I'm not prepared to distribute any of these taxes.
I don't think that will anything like that, or probably anything at all, will change the political dynamics in that particular part of the country, in that particular regional corporation. But we're gonna have to leave it there and continue another time. Thank you very much.
Mr. Johnson, thank you very much for having me, and have a pleasant day. I hope that the population is a little bit more clear, a little bit clearer. Tomorrow in the Senate, we'll be completing the debate. It's in committee stages, and I do hope that your listeners and your viewers take the time to look into the parliamentary debate to understand it a bit more, because it is affecting every citizen in this country, and it is very clear that it is unfair at this point in time. Maybe at another time, I can let you know, how many sections in this bill is being impacted by the arm of the political arm of the state.
All right, so you can hold us to that. But let me just ask you a question to take us out. You were talking earlier about you think that some of this is aimed at assisting the financiers, the party financiers of the PNM, the party in office now. Is it different? Are the people who are, well, at least in some cases, who are financiers of the PNM, are the same people who are financiers of the UNC?
Well, I mean, let me put it this way. Look, at the end of the day, the United National Congress between 2010 and 2015 has been very clear in its mandate, and that is to serve the people, to serve all the people from all 41 constituencies through Trinidad and Tobago.
Yeah, well, it was a partnership between 10 and 15. It was a partnership.
Yes, the UNC-led partnership, right? Their mandate has been to serve the people and all the people. And under the then Prime Minister Kamla Persad-Bissessar, she would not have implemented what you call geographical discrimination in the delivery of goods and services throughout the length and breadth of the country. And anyone could have seen that with the amount that was done for the citizens from as far northwest and as stronghold PNM as Diego Martin, west, central, and northeast, and as far down south as the stronghold UNC of Siparia. So in this particular, in all that we did as a party at that point in time, it was geared towards serving all people. We were a people-centered government, not a friends, family, and financier-centered government. So in answering your question, in the delivery of goods and services, in the legislation that we passed in Parliament, it was geared towards all the people, all the citizens of this country, and not financiers or not friends and family of the government at that time. So, but in stark contrast, we've seen this government that has clearly been taking decisions, for example, taking a decision to increase the duties of a basic commodity such as pasta from 20% to 40% and to 60%. And I don't know, maybe to protect maybe to protect certain financiers. I don't know. But
well, thank you very much. Well, let me just say that I can't pretend to know some of what was going on because I was involved in trying to get the message out between 10 and 15. So I have to say that, put that on the record.
Right.
Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Mr. Johnson.
Very welcome. We will take a break. And when we come back, we start with a look around the region before we go further on this discussion, on this program this morning. Stay with us.
Knowing how to tell authentic is as easy as 1, 2, 3. Find it, match it, search it. Step 1. Find the style number on the tag. Step 2. Match the style number inside the jersey with the number on the tag. Step 3. Search it. A quick Google search of the style number will verify the jersey is authentic when the search results match the jersey being searched. Don't be fooled by counterfeit jerseys. Before you buy, remember to find it, match it, search it.
Fanzone, 2 locations nationwide. Center City Mall, Chaguanas and Movietown, Port of Spain. Nationwide delivery available.
There's a taste in the air everywhere. Feel the vibe cause it's something to share. Smooth, rich and creamy, you'll find it right here. Makes you smile, relax a while, it's fun and good cheer. Ooh, enjoy every scoop. Ooh, every taste will get you hooked. We have flavors that you love, a combination special. Come along, enjoy our treats. This is Uncle Pete's.
The best for your baby is at dbesttoys.com. We have the best strollers, car seats, walkers, feeding accessories, playpens, cribs, clothing, and the widest range of brand name toys like Barbie, Hot Wheels, Nerf, LOL, Fisher-Price, Cocomelon, Intex Pools, Amazon Fire tablets, HP and Gateway laptops, and the best bikes, scooters, skateboards, and ride-on. Visit us in-store at 7 Main Road, MacBean, or shop online now at dbesttoys.com. That's dbesttoys.com. We have the best toys at the best prices.
People really want to know, what about me? Where do I fit? Yes. What is in the ride for me in terms of a better Trinidad and Tobago? And I'm pleased to shed some light on that.
The purpose of bail is to ensure your attendance at court. That's it. It is not punitive. It is not rehabilitative.
We, the police officers, we are professional, and we are here for whenever the survivor is ready to come forward.
We have the right to private and family life, the right to religious freedoms and beliefs and thoughts and expression. But these rights are not absolute. Certain rights can be limited.
The law is to govern the whole. It's for all of us in public.
All right, welcome back to the program. Up ahead, Sean Fuentes, the man for information inside the TTFA. The return match against St. Vincent and the Grenadines is with us. We'll get to him in a moment, but first let's take a look around the region, and we go to Guyana for some latest developments there. Let's take a look at this.
The police and emergency services were called to the school this afternoon after students from different Form 3 classes became involved in issuing threats against each other. Students who were armed with bricks and pieces of wood were seen leaving the school compound and walking along Sheriff Street and surrounding areas, ignoring their teachers' calls to return to the school. The situation became chaotic as persons who are suspected to be gang members were seen running into the schoolyard, causing confusion. In an effort to de-escalate the situation, a decision was made today to bring an early end to classes at the school. Ministry of Education Public Relations Officer Myrtle Halley visited the school and reported that there were no widespread injuries, as only one child was seen with bruises. Mr. Halley said the Ministry of Education has a zero-tolerance policy against violence and will be taking additional steps to address the concerns.
Well, the message from the Ministry of Education has always been that we have a zero tolerance towards violence. This has been said many times by the Minister of Education herself, and that position will not change.
The Education Ministry's public relations officer said parents will have to be engaged to address the situation, since the teachers and the Education Ministry cannot do it alone.
At this time, we just want parents and guardians especially to assist in curbing these activities and hopefully preventing them altogether, because what we're finding is that a lot of these children who are involved in this type of activity, they lack the necessary parental involvement and guidance. So though these incidents might be occurring in school, the genesis is not within the school environment. So we're calling on all parents to play a deeper role in terms of how they bring up their children, the type of guidance they provide to their children, and also to encourage them to not to be influenced by their colleagues to get involved in these type of activities which would not benefit them in the future.
Other Ministry of Education officials visited the school today, and police investigators have launched a probe. Additional security measures are expected to be put in place at the new Campbellville Secondary School. The Ministry of Education is concerned about the growing trend of gang-related incidents in many of the city's high schools. This afternoon, the Minister of Education, Priya Manikchand, met with teachers of another high school after concerns were raised at that school about gang-related issues. One Education Ministry official said parents need to play a bigger role in the school lives of their children and do additional supervision when the children are at home and check their bags before they leave their homes for school.
All right, so that's Gordon Mosley's report from News Source Guyana. Well, let's take this story out of this morning's Newsday newspaper. Rushford wants Trinidad and Tobago to maintain intensity. The Soca Warriors midfielder is eager for the rematch against what is called the Vincy Heat. The story says that John Paul Rushford, the Trinidad and Tobago attacking midfielder, wants his teammates to maintain the same intensity they showed on Friday when they square off against St. Vincent and the Grenadines in the second time in 4 days in their League B Group C tie at the CONCACAF National Nations League. This game is scheduled for the Hazley Crawford Stadium, Mokorapo, 7 p.m. To talk with us about that this morning, Sean Fuentes, the media officer for the Trinidad and Tobago Football Association. Good morning. Good to see you, my friend.
Good morning, Andy. It's a pleasure being on your program, and morning to your viewers also.
All right, thank you very much. We'll take it from there. So what's the stake here? Why we need to maintain the intensity?
We need to maintain that intensity because we want to obviously top this group. As you know, we would have been relegated from Group A to Group B in the CONCACAF Nations League back in 2019. We were in a group back then with Honduras and Martinique. We finished at the bottom of the group. Obviously, Trinidad and Tobago's football has been going through a difficult period in recent years, in recent time. And now we're trying to rebuild and to get our football, I think, back to where it belongs, where it deserves to be in the region, at least in the Caribbean. And at this point in time, we are second in this current group behind Nicaragua. We lost our opening game on the road to Nicaragua a couple weeks ago. And today, the final match of this FIFA window, 4 games were played in this window. Obviously, we're coming on the back of a 2-0 victory against St. Vincent and the Grenadines in Kingston last Friday, and today's match is in a sense the return leg before we resume CONCACAF Nations League next year, early next year. So there's going to be a break in this competition, but this competition is vital, Andy, because it's also not just a qualification for the Group A phase for us in CONCACAF Nations League, but it also serves as qualification for the 2023 CONCACAF Gold Cup. That is the competition that all teams in this region aspire to be part of outside of World Cup qualifying or the World Cup. The next World Cup obviously going to be in Qatar in December of this year. We're not in the World Cup. We've been eliminated from that competition. That took place last year. And now we are aspiring to get to the 2026 World Cup, which will be held in CONCACAF, Mexico, United States, and also Canada. So this competition serves as, part of the journey towards that World Cup as well.
2026 in 3 different countries.
3 different countries.
Mexico,
First time it's going to be that. Yeah.
What accounts for that?
Well, this time, FIFA and its various confederations decided that based on the rotation, World Cups will be held in the different confederations over the next, let's say, 4 to 12 years. FIFA has found a system, a format where they're going to spread the World Cup around. And this time, the confederation, CONCACAF, the leading countries in the region decided to have a unified bid for hosting of the World Cup within these three major destinations within the region, not just in terms of hosting capacity, but in terms of its football resources and the level of football that has been played, the level of facilities. And obviously Mexico and the United States have hosted World Cups in the past. Canada has also hosted youth World Cups and women World Cups in the past as well. And when they put forward the bid at the last bidding process for hosting of World Cup, CONCACAF came out on top, and that's good for the region because it means now that the CONCACAF region is going to be allocated additional spots for that World Cup in 2026. And also the fact that these countries are being host, Canada, Mexico, and the United States, they're not going to take part in the actual CONCACAF qualifying. So I guess in some ways that means that Trinidad and Tobago should stand a better chance of qualifying for that World Cup in 2026. But it's not going to be that easy because you have other countries in the region that are now stepping up and are aspiring to get to a World Cup, as compared to the past where out of the Caribbean, the top teams might have been like a Trinidad and Tobago and Jamaica. Now you have smaller nations such as Curacao, Haiti, Suriname, and other countries within the CONCACAF who are stepping up their game and are really pressing for supremacy in regional football.
Yeah, and just to remind people who don't know, CONCACAF involves Central American, Caribbean, and
North America.
So, yes. So that's why. So each one of those regions is involved in what will happen there among
right. And what is different this time around, Andy, is as compared to the past, as opposed to the past where you would have had teams from the Caribbean competing among itself in the early phase of the competition before you actually meet teams from Central America and North America. Now from the get-go, from the opening game, the pool is now wide, so you can now start this competition facing teams from Central America such as Guatemala, El Salvador, Honduras, or even Mexico in the early phase of the competition. So now it's in the competition, it's a bit more stiff. But they say it's good for regional football, so we'll see when that time comes.
Right, but because it appears that way. I mean, if we have to be sort of keeping our fingers crossed that we could maintain intensity against the side from St. Vincent, it means something, right?
Right. Well, historically, St. Vincent and the Grenadines have proven to be formidable opposition for Trinidad and Tobago. What we've noticed as well is that over the years, these smaller nations, that when they have to face Trinidad and Tobago, they really come at us. They're really up for the challenges. So no game is easy anymore. Of course, the John Public believes that we should always be ahead of some of our smaller opponents or smaller countries in the region, but football has changed now, and you find that the likes of Guyana, Bermuda, even Bahamas have been they've been doing their work and they've been stepping up their game, and Trinidad and Tobago now has to obviously try to stay ahead of the rest, and that's why tonight's game is important, because we want to ensure that we finish this phase on a high, and we need to take care of business tonight at the A.C. Crawford Stadium.
Right, and the fellow is saying here, if we do that same thing on Monday, as we did a couple of days ago, especially at home with the atmosphere and the crowd backing us, I think we'll come out with a better result, especially going into the last two games in the group.
Correct. Yes. And of course, as I mentioned, those two games those two matches will take place next year. There's going to be a break in the CONCACAF Nations League. So the next couple FIFA international windows this year will afford Trinidad and Tobago the opportunity to play international friendlies. The TTFA right now is working on securing proper international friendlies against quality opposition. And then, of course, the focus switches to that World Cup in Qatar in November, December of this year. Football development is all year round now. And it deals not just with your senior men's team, but we also have our women who are aspiring to qualify for the next World Cup. And they go off to Mexico, Monterrey, Mexico, for the final phase of CONCACAF qualification that takes place in July. Then we have our under-20 men's team as we speak, our under-20 men's team is in Costa Rica for a training camp, and then we go over to Honduras for the CONCACAF qualifiers that takes place at the end of this month. Angus Eve, the head coach of the senior men's team, he's also the head coach of that under-20 team. So it's a busy period for the Trinidad and Tobago Football Association, which is still under the FIFA Normalization Committee. So a lot has been taking place to try to get our football up and going again. Obviously, we have a lot of things off the field of play to take care of. But, once results go well on the field of play, you find that everything sort of falls into place. And it works both ways. We have to get our house in order from an administrative side, but then on the field of play, we also need to ensure that, we are able to compete fairly and to do well enough to get back into the top ranks of CONCACAF football.
Right, and to what extent the one is affecting the other, the getting the house in order, and some people may look at it as a kind of protracted issue happening there. We can't seem to get over a certain hump, and that is affecting. Is it that way that itself is affecting the performance of the team, the better management of the team? What is happening with the organization? It's taking a long time.
To some extent, yes. You need breathing space and good results and good performances on the field of play. That is what will allow the association to operate in a manner which allows for proper football development. Good results on the field of play, Andy, will help generate income. It will help the federation to be able to be sustainable, which at this point in time it really isn't, because we are still dependent a lot on FIFA funding for football. Corporates, Trinidad and Tobago has not really fully come on board as yet with football, and then you find that the fact that we're no longer in the runnings for the World Cup 2022, corporate TNT is not really on board. We do have some existing partners that have been generous and have been faithful with the Trinidad and Tobago Football Association in recent years, but at this point in time, it takes a lot to really have a sustained development program, to have all your national teams active. And it means that the Football Association, from an administrative standpoint, has been going through some challenges to maintain football and to ensure that our national teams are active, to ensure that we have proper resources, proper staff, and to maintain our facilities and that sort of thing. And we have to obviously be very thankful to the government of Trinidad and Tobago and the sport company for allowing us use of the various facilities at the different stadiums across the country. But from a footballing point of view, we have some work to do, and this is where results on the field of play will come in really handy. So, for instance, we are on a winning run right now. We had a victory against Bahamas and then also St. Vincent last week in Kingstown, and a win tonight will, in a sense, just give us some breathing space for the rest of the year, and we can now try to approach more corporate partners to come on board, and it means that coaches and staff can be paid on time. We can afford proper training camps. At this point in time, as I mentioned, the under-20 men's team, they've been in Costa Rica for the past 2 weeks in a training camp, which is quite good, because in recent times the FA has not really been able to afford to send international teams for training camps before competitions. And this is vital, considering the fact also that we have football in Trinidad and Tobago has been at a standstill for the past 2 to 3 years because of the pandemic. And recently you find that the Ascension League has afforded our players to be active domestically. But our under-20 footballers have not been active much over the last 2 years because the Secondary Schools Football League has not been ongoing because of the pandemic. So having a training camp and being able to go and experience proper facilities against quality oppositions, because we also had the chance to play 2 games against the Costa Rica under-20 team over the past week or so. So this would have served the team really well in its preparation for World Cup qualifying. But again, these things come at a cost. So it means that results and properly a proper development program and proper governance will obviously hopefully get us back on stream to getting to where I think football in our country deserves to be.
Yeah, I mean, you say there's quite a bit to unpack from what you just said there, because you say you thank the government for making the facilities available, but should that not be sort of what should happen in any case? And you said that Mr. Eve is both the coach of the national team and the under-20 team. that's sort of normal. And then you talk about the facilities or the support from corporate Trinidad and Tobago, and you would think that when you're down, that's when you need more support than ever. But I suppose the truism in life about everybody loves a winner. So
Correct. You're quite right about that. And if you look back at the history of our football teams and I guess sport in general, we have a culture where, you know, we tend to get on the bandwagon when results are going well, when there's victory in the air. You look back at the 2006 campaign and a lot of corporate TNT and a lot of the fans only came to the AC Crawford Stadium when we were maybe 2 or 3 victories away from qualifying for Germany.
Yeah.
And the journey itself is hectic, it's long, it's overbearing at times, and you know, our athletes go through a lot. But I'm hoping that with time, you know, our understanding of what it takes to be successful in sport will evolve, and people will understand that it starts at the development phase, and you can't wait until, you know, we are 2 matches away from qualifying for a major event to want to come on board. But again, we have to be thankful to those who have continued to support our football in recent times, and hopefully this will improve with results and with a better understanding of what it takes.
All right, well, best of luck, my friend. See what happens later.
Thank you, Andy. I hope to see you at the stadium later.
Well, I'm not sure if I could do that and then be here in the morning.
All right.
See what happens. Thank you very much, Sean Fuentes. Well, I think we should take a look at what the numbers are saying for COVID-19 on this day, Monday, June 13th. So let's see if we can get those things up and out of the way as we move forward here. So this is the numbers: 217, the new positive cases in the last 24 hours. Deaths over the last day, 4, 8,240. The total active positive cases, the total deaths thus far, 3,963. 137, that's the number of persons in the parallel health system dealing with COVID-19. So that's a brief look at where we are with the numbers for COVID-19 in our midst. Let's take a look now at, well, I suppose at this point, we will ask you to watch this. You take a look at it. We talk about it on the other side.
Spend $20 or more if you want to purchase sugar. That's one of the demands allegedly placed on consumers by some establishments as the island faces shipping delays of the commodity due to the pandemic and the Russia-Ukraine conflict. The Consumer Affairs Department is putting business owners on alert on the sale of different items as a package to finagle consumers into purchasing certain goods.
It is absolutely incorrect for you to say to that consumer that you could only purchase that particular item if you are buying additional items, or a term which we refer to as bundling. And the provisions of the legislation is absolutely clear. If there are any consumers out there who have experienced such practices by business outlets, please do not hesitate to come to or report the matter to the Consumer Affairs Department. Again, we are strongly urging and pleading to all retail outlets and business owners to desist from this practice with immediate effect.
Deputy Director of the Consumer Affairs Department, Benedict Joseph, warns business owners that such bundling practices are illegal and there will be consequences if they are found liable.
The legislation, being the Distribution and Price of Goods Act, makes it very, very clear. There are provisions, section 38 and 39, makes it abundantly clear that this is an illegal practice by which shop owners can be prosecuted.
Joseph also urges consumers to report any incidents of such bundling to the Consumer Affairs Department.
If you are unsure, please call or come in to us and we'll clarify. Because obviously it is a partnership between you, the consumer, and the business retail outlets. So again, please, consumers out there listening, if you have any reports or any incidents where you were forced to purchase any item, but together with a bundle of other items for a particular price, please report to Consumer Affairs Department immediately.
The global health crisis and the war in Europe has led to an energy price shock, supply chain disruptions, and compounded a sharp rise in inflation, which has resulted in the elevated price of goods and services worldwide. There isn't necessarily a shortage of sugar, but rather delays in the shipments.
All right, and that was a story there from HTS News Force in St. Lucia, talking about a custom, an activity involving sugar swindling in that country. That's what that was about. Well, let's just take a look at what's in the Newsday today in Trinidad and Tobago. In the Trinidad and Tobago Newsday, the top story is that there are disputes about whether or not the St. Augustine campus of the University of the West Indies should seek to increase fees. The principal was talking about that, but other interest groups, other factors in there saying a no to fee increases. The lecturers and vice chancellor opposed the principal's suggestions. That's a big story in the Newsday today. Breathe easy as Sahara dust clears. That's a warning from the Met Office. And the UNC and the lawyers in the UNC are mounting a fierce battle to have the Attorney General removed over that business about his position regarding the matter in Miami involving people concerned with, and this is a matter going back 18 years, the construction of the Piarco Airport Terminal, Kwaitong, and others. Rambali, that's Dinesh Rambali, an MP for Chaguanas West. He's replying to the Law Association, asking them to speak up, and the association members have drafted a petition against the AG for his statements made in that matter. He's saying that he was only a bid player, a junior attorney representing Mr. Kwaitong in that matter. The decision is that that was not the case. He was substantially involved. So this is the front page of the Newsday, Trinidad and Tobago, and the back page, Rushford wants Trinidad and Tobago to maintain its intensity. That's the issue we talked about with Sean Fuentes moments ago. And in the Newsday Tobago, we are no flight by night operation. The Silphil home is saying that. The management is saying that after the home was closed down, given the controversy taking place about the management of children's homes in the country. And that's the front page. On the back page, Walker bags 5 Pan Am medals. News story in the back there. So that's a quick look at what's in these newspapers, the Newsday Trinidad and Tobago and the Newsday Tobago. Well, that's our broadcast for this Monday morning. We thank you for watching. We thank you. We thank our guests and tell you that you could stick around here. You should stick around here in half an hour's time. We'll have news followed by today's edition of Talking Point with Shah and Small. I'm Andy Johnson for now. Thanks for watching, and we'll see you tomorrow.